everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am here with my first book haul of 2025. So these are books that I bought myself either from independent bookstores or that I bought at library book sales. I love frequenting library book sales as often as I can, and I found some pretty interesting things this time around. To start, I'm going to mention two books that I bought earlier in the year that I've already described on my channel, and those are Tears of the Wolf by Elizabeth Wheatley and Falling Hard for the Royal Guard by Megan Clausen. And I've spoken about both of these books in my April TBR, and we'll be talking about them again in my April wrap-up, so you can check out those videos if you want to know more about these. But one is a contemporary romance, and one is a fantasy Viking-inspired romance adventure. Next are two books that I also bought but that have not yet appeared, and the first of those is the play 1536 by Ava Pickett. This is currently being performed in London, I believe, and it sounds incredible, but I felt like it was highly unlikely that it would transfer to New York, although if it does, I am so there. So I thought I would at least buy myself the script so I could read it for myself, since I can't go and see it. 1536, from my understanding, is about three women from rural England, I believe, in the year 1536, who are discussing the king's sentencing of Anne Boleyn, how they feel about that, and then it spirals out into discussions of the patriarchy and male control over women and their lives, and it gets very personal and frighteningly modern, and I am all over that. So I can't wait for that to arrive, but it's going to be published in May, I believe. Then the other one should be arriving on Monday, and that is One Enchanted Evening by Anton Dubek. I love watching Strictly or clips of Strictly as I can here in the US, and I was very excited to see that Anton Dubek, former pro and one of the now judges, wrote many fiction novels. They sound very similar to Michael Ball's The Empire series that I read earlier this year and really, really loved. They seem to be Downton Abbey-esque drama taking place in the late 1930s through the 1940s at, grand establishments, but with ballroom dancing also thrown in, because why wouldn't he? And I love all of those elements, so I'm really looking forward to reading it soon. Other books I bought for myself are first Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. I have heard fabulous things about this series for years, kept hoping that I would get it as an ebook, but none of my libraries have done so. And then I discovered that the second two audiobooks are read by Nicola Coughlan, and I loved her as an audiobook narrator on Misdirected earlier this year, so I really want to listen to those. But this first book is narrated by someone else, who I'm sure is lovely, but it won't be quite the same. So I bought this copy on Pango Books for very, very cheap. It's rehoming a used book, and so now I can have the backstory. The backstory of this, as far as I understand it, is it takes the premise of what if Anne Boleyn really had been a witch and established a royal coven, and that coven still exists to this day, working almost the same way MI5 does, but with witches instead of spies. And so we follow four young women as they grow into their places in this convent in the present day, and the dangers that they then encounter, what that does to their friendships. It sounds really quite interesting, so I'm excited to give it a try. Then I also purchased a copy of Atalanta by Jennifer Saint, which, again, I'm really looking forward to. I personally really liked Ariadne. You can see it over here. I heard some mixed things about it, but I really enjoyed it, so I'm really intrigued to see how she retells the myth of Atalanta. Atalanta, I believe, was a very athletic young woman who challenged all of her suitors to various athletic challenges and championships, races, archery, that sort of thing. And she beat them all, but somewhere along the line she was turned into a bear. Okay, after reading the back, I got that completely wrong. But it still sounds quite interesting. I'm going to read you the back so you don't have to deal with my mangled interpretation. So Princess Atalanta is born, but she's a daughter rather than the son her parents were hoping for. And so they leave her on a mountainside to die, as was common practice. But then a mother bear finds her, and she is raised by this bear. And so she grows up, but the goddess Artemis has also been protecting her, and she warns her that if she ever marries, that will be her undoing. And somehow she gets offered the chance to sail with the Argonauts and join their quest for the Golden Fleece. This sounds even more interesting than I was thinking, so now I'm extra excited to read it. Then, in addition, when I was in New York, I picked up Fagin the Thief by Alison Epstein, because this sounds incredible. This is, of course, a retelling of Fagin's backstory of Oliver Twist and how he fell in with Bill Sikes and Nancy, how he started the gang of pickpocket boys, but also gives you incredible insight into his connections to the Jewish community in the East End of London and how they were viewed at the time, how he was viewed being part of that community, how much he stuck to it, how much he left behind. It sounds really interesting, so I really hope this turns out well. And then I also bought another Laura Wood because I cannot find this series anywhere here in the US. Well, Hoopla claims they have it, but they have it in German, which does me no good. And this series starts with The Agency for Scandal, and this is a young adult novel about a group of secret agents, I believe, and they claim it's set in the 1890s, although to me the cover suggests more 1930s. Honestly, I love either time, so I'm quite happy with whatever it turns out to be. And it looks romantic and adventurous, and there's scandal and drama, and I am here for it. Also, look at that spine. That is beautiful. Oh. So yes, very excited to get to this. Then I hit my first library book sale of the year, which is put on in the town where I work. And I found some really interesting things, starting with 2 children's books. The first I'm excited about, Mary, Queen of Scots and All That by Alan Burnett. This looks to be a horrible histories-esque book about Scottish history for children, but taking all the gross bits and the really funny bits. And that sounds fabulous to me. I wish this had been around when I was younger. It may have been, but this is the first time I've heard of it, so I'll read it now. I also found a copy of Molly's Pilgrim, which I remember reading in school and really loving, but I haven't heard it talked about as much these days, and I feel like it needs to be read more these days. This is about a little girl called Molly who's in school, and they're learning about Thanksgiving and the Pilgrims who came to this country to find religious freedom. And I believe all the children are challenged to go home and make their own pilgrim doll. And everyone comes in with your standard, black hat, big white collar, but Molly makes hers as a Russian immigrant because that's how her grandmother was a pilgrim. Her grandmother came to this country from Russia seeking religious freedom as a Russian Jew. And I just think that's such a beautiful story, so I really wanted a copy for myself. Then I also found a copy of D by Michel Faber, otherwise known as A Tale of Two Worlds. And this sounds strange, but is also marketed as Dickensian, so we'll see. I loved The Crimson Petal and the White by Michel Faber when I read it years ago. Didn't love The Book of Strange New Things, so we'll see how I feel about this one. I think the premise of this is that the letter D goes missing from the English language. Yes, the letter D starts disappearing from language. And so this little girl has to go to this other world to try and search for it and solve it. So interesting. We'll see what I think about this. A complete surprise to find was Peter Davison's autobiography, Is There Life Outside the Box? And Peter Davison I have known and loved for years, because when I was 9 or 10, I would watch All Creatures Great and Small with my mother, the older series from the 70s in which Peter Davison played Tristan. He's also probably best well known as playing Doctor Number 5 on Doctor Who, and now being David Tennant's father-in-law. And David Tennant wrote the introduction to this, which I'm also looking forward to. And so these are just notes about his life and his time playing Campion, his time on All Creatures, his foray into musicals like doing Gypsy with Imelda Staunton, and everything in between. And I would love an insight into all of those projects, so I'm excited. Then I also found this copy of The Romance of Tristan by Berulle, which is of course a transcript of the medieval tale of Tristan, as in Tristan and Isolde. And I've loved that myth for years, so I'm really excited to add this. Perhaps when I get around to reading Le Morte d'Arthur, I'll tack this on the end, because those have always seemed to go together for me. Then I also found Elizabeth's London by Liza Pickard, which is nonfiction about Elizabethan England and London in particular, and just looking at daily life and what that was like at the time. And it looks wonderful. The book is in really great condition, and I'm excited to see what I think of Liza Pickard's writing as well as the information in it. Then I also found this slightly racy copy of Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I may have read some of his short stories, but that's about all. I've never read any of his full-length novels yet. I have an edition of Cien Años de Soledad in Spanish, but that has seemed really intimidating for me to pick up, so I haven't done that yet. I might start with this translation of Love in the Time of Cholera first. I'm really not sure what it's about. My high school English teacher's description of it still lingers in my memory, but it is kind of gross, so I'm not going to put that out for you here. Hopefully this is slightly better than how Mrs. Clark described it at the time. Then my two perhaps most exciting finds were Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, which stormed BookTube many years ago. It's since been adapted by Amazon Prime, I think. And this is a queer romance in which the son of the American president and the Prince of Wales hate each other but then fall in love, and what that does to international diplomacy. And I've heard that it's really adorable and really uplifting, so I'm excited to find out for myself. And then finally, my most exciting find is this seemingly brand new copy of The Regency Years by Robert Morrison. And my mother has read this book, and yet I have not. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's a very famous nonfiction book about the Regency years and the history, looking at Austen, Napoleon, Byron, the Industrial Revolution, all of the huge revolutionary moments that happened in the Regency era. So I'm very excited to hopefully get to this during Jane Austen July. Of course, I've been saying that for a few years, so we'll see if it actually happens this time. So there you have it. Those are the books that I have picked up in these first couple of months of the year. Summer tends to be the major period of book buying and library book sales, so stick around if you want to see more. Let me know if you are also particularly excited about any of the books that I mentioned, and I will try to bump them up my priority list. And let me know if you've gotten hold of any really exciting books recently. Until then, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye, everyone.